What did I tell you? Get in your bed. Go get in your bed. Lay down. Lay down. Um, so getting back to why people don't like me. I am crusty. I'm hardened. And I'm also very kind and compassionate. And I love people dearly. I got I got people that won't speak to me, and I love them dearly. Yeah, I've done and said stupid stuff and turned people against me and over things I've done that they thought I was harsh. Maybe I hurt their feelings. Maybe I said things I shouldn't have said. Maybe I did things I shouldn't have done. I've done a lot of stupid stuff in my life. But I tend to be somewhat hardened. And I'm working on my character every day. I'm working to be sweeter and kinder and more compassionate and understanding and empathing that not everybody is a hardened old soldier like me. So you might be asking, the questions, well, what have you been through? Now, in this YouTube video, I'm going to be very careful that I don't expose things that have happened to me in my life that would expose a person. So I have no intentions of exposing anybody. So if you know you're one of those people that might have done bad things to me at some point in time or made my life hard in some way, um, rest assured, your secret's safe with me. Because I have no desire to hurt or get back. I have no vengeance in my soul. I leave that all to God. And everybody face their comeuppance. Everybody faces their comeuppance. And I am no exception. So I've learned to walk softly. They say walk softly and carry a big stick. Well, I'm for the most part, as long as I'm capable, I'm going to lay that big stick down and I'm going to walk softly because I have faced God with all this stuff. So, uh, the way that I've thought about it a lot, the way that I'm going to go about this is I'm not going to designate places or people, but I'm going to talk about experiences that I've had. And I've had things happen to me from the time I was 10 years old that started toughening me up. I've had things happen in school. I've had things happen that were traumatizing in a lot of ways. Now, there are hard times and there are traumatizing times. Things that are hard, that harden you, oftentimes are suffering cold and hunger and living in a way where you have to work really, really hard. Traumatizing things are a little bit different because they leave a wound in your soul. They leave scars and they can harden you, they can toughen you, but you have to process through them because you have a scar in your heart or in your soul. So, some of the things that have happened to me, and these may not seem like big things to you, but um, in my age, I had to learn to be brave. Now, on the light side of things, I had lived out in the country, and I had never really cared for animals much. I didn't have a lot of experience with animal husbandry. Um, but people knew I was capable of a great many things. So one day I had somebody knock on my door and they had a nanny goat. And she was kind of a little mountain nanny goat, not a miniature, but she was little. And she had been bred to a um, big goat, probably something like a Nubian or something, Alpine or something. And she was trying to have this baby, and she couldn't have this baby, and she is suffering. And they come to the door and wanted to know if I could do anything about it. Well, I searched into my rectory of ideas, and I went and got me some warm water and some dish soap. I was probably a teenager at this time. I wasn't very old, maybe 18, something like that. Let's see, maybe 20. And so I went out there to the barn, and I knew what I had to do. So the little baby goat's head was hanging out. It looked like it was dead. And I soaped up my hand, didn't have gloves. There wasn't such thing then. And I soaped up my hand in that warm water, soapy water, probably Joy dish soap. They don't even make that anymore. And I gradually worked my hand up inside of her, and I felt around, and I was trying to be really gentle. And every now and then, um, she'd have a contraction, and her pelvis bone would come down on my finger. It hurt, and I knew it was hurting her, and I felt so bad. But I run my hand in there, and I was feeling, and I could feel this baby goat's little legs crooked up behind her pelvis. So I got in there and I pulled its little legs out and got them on the outside on both sides. And the little goat then began to, every time she'd have a contraction, it'd start working out. And so um, that little baby goat was born. And I took an old rag of some sort. I don't know what I had, but I took some sort of old rag and I rubbed it and I rubbed it and I patted on it and I worked with it till I got it breathing. And eventually it stood up on its feet, and the mother she got better, but she wasn't able to nurse it. And so I gave it milk. It was in the wintertime. It was really, really cold. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer. If you're very, very tender-hearted, you need to skip this part of the video because it's hard. So it was in the wintertime, and I was living in a place where there wasn't a lot of human rights or animal rights as far as that goes. And I worked for several hours to try to get this baby goat born. But it was really cold and it was in the winter. And um, I took it in the house because I was going to keep it in the house. I may cry. I still, I still have scars. So excuse me for just a minute. So, uh, to tell the story and get over it pretty quick because I don't want to get all emotional. Um, where I was staying at, they wouldn't allow me to keep it in the house. And like I said, there wasn't a lot of human rights. There wasn't a lot of animal rights. Where I was staying, it was a really rough country. And they wouldn't let me keep it in the house. And so I took it out of the barn, heartbroken, because I was afraid. And it froze to death that night. Now, the whole attitude was suck it up, buttercup. You were not able to feel emotional about things like that, where I was at that state and time. It was cruel, it was heartless, and I was heartbroken. But I got over it. Well, I sort of got over it. You can tell I didn't really. There's my inappropriate laugh. Um, Excuse me. I'm stretching my legs a little bit. So, I'm sorry about that. Um, and I had to be tough in other ways too, because, um, it was a homesteading type situation where you provided a lot, if not all, your own food. And I worked with men. I worked with men and neighbors um, in the fields, and I worked. Um, I helped with hog killing. And then again, if you are a person that's of a tender spirit and this is going to upset you, you need to skip this part of the video or not watch this video. So I will put a disclaimer at the front because I don't want anybody to be hurt or offended or, you know, this was a Daniel Boone type territory, and things were not kind and they were not simple. So I was just a teenager. I think I started this when I was 14, and hog killing day would come. And it would be, you know, kind of cold, like in the 40s. And they would be a crowd of men gather up, and for some reason, I, I was always expected to be there. I was expected to work. So, the hogs, they shot them in the head, either right here or behind the ear, and then they would have to uh, cut the jugular to bleed it out. And, big old fat hogs, very big old neck. Now, if you eat meat, somebody's got to kill that animal. Even if you go to the store and you buy your bacon. So if you're a vegetarian, you definitely do not want to watch this. But if you eat meat, somebody had to kill that animal. And that's a fact. So I'm going to have disclaimers all over this place because I don't want people being upset. And I'm more tender in my heart now. I couldn't do this. I couldn't be tough like this no more. But they would have to cut the jugular, and they would have one of them old hickory knives, and they'd run it up in there, and their whole hand would be up in that fat neck. But I had to watch that as a teenager. Now, people that was around there, they was tough. They was hardened to it. Kids in that day, they had seen it their whole life. They didn't pay no attention to it. All they was thinking about was the salt bacon and hams and stuff they was gonna have for Christmas. But I hadn't been raised that way. I worked in the fields, and all of this is just light stuff. This is not anything compared to some of the things I've been through. Because some of the things I've been through is quite scary. But just starting out light. I don't know how heavy I'm gonna go with some of this stuff, but you know, hoeing acres of corn, uh, my little tender hands where I'd been raised soft got all blistered, and I complained about the blisters and talked about getting me a pair of gloves, and they all just laughed at me, just laughed. Ah, you'll toughen up to that, honey. You get over that, and I did. Before long, them blisters turned calluses. But like I said, that's nothing. I mean, that's just circumstantial stuff. That's just living. And but I faced other things that was way more traumatizing and way more fearful. And I'm pretty tough. I'm pretty hardened. And I've been hurt a lot and scared a lot. And I've been hungry. I've been cold. And it was mostly because I wasn't prepared for that. I was kind of a tender young girl. I'd been raised in a beauty shop and I went to modeling school and I had soft hands. And I was used to soft things. So if I come across crusty, I've got a reason for being crusty. I learned so much during my life. There's very little I can't do or won't try. But um, sometimes people don't like me. I've spoke out of turn. And if you're one of those people, if you're a relative or if you're a person that shies away from me because I scare you a little bit, or if I've hurt your feelings, because I've hurt a lot of people's feelings, my children, because maybe I was a little too rough. Um, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. But there's a certain endearment that goes along with being a crusty old pirate or a hardened warrior. They're always going to protect you. They're always going to take your side. And I have taken people's sides that I really didn't believe what they did was right, but I've got a fierce loyalty. If you're mine, you're mine. And it's not like a claiming possession or owning. It's kind of like the clan thing. If you're my family, you're my family. I'm going to be loyal to you. And I'm going to stand for you. And I stand for people that aren't my family. So, um, next time you run up on, I don't know how many we got out there, maybe some cowboys out here in the West, uh, maybe some old grandmas. Every generation, I'm sure, has their crusties. I'm thinking of the crusty cat crab. I don't know why. Um, that's a good example. What was the guy's name that had the crusty crab? Anyway, it's pretty crusty. Those cartoon characters. But next time you meet somebody that comes across as being a little rough or a little harsh, try to stop and think, what have they went through their life? What have they suffered? George Washington, the first president of our country, I painted a portrait of him. He was 16 years old and had went to um, school, and I'm trying to think, William and Mary College in Virginia. And he had went to school to be a surveyor. He's 16 years old when he was surveying that frontier United States. Back in that time, they had wolves and they had bears and they had Indian tribes all over the place. 16 years old. He was tough by then. I think he was raised in Virginia on a farm. And then think about um, Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett. He was tough. I heard a story about an old man told me the story about he was a young man. Um, Goodness, he was probably born in the 1800s. When I met him, he was an old man. But he told me how, as a young man, they would go into the woods and they'd cut logs, and they'd take them mules and they'd drag them out of the woods and drag them down to the river. And it was kind of a small river, and so they had to wait until they'd make rafts, and they had to make rafts, and then they would wait till the spring floods come. And when the spring floods come, the river would just get wide and it would get enormous. And they'd jump on them rafts as young men in cold weather, spring, but the spring floods would come. And they would ride those rafts of logs down river to where they could stop and sell them. I guess they walked back home. But he said that the water where they was driving those rafts down the river would jump up, would get up on their overalls and their breeches and stuff, and it'd freeze. And generally, the whole traveling down through there, they's wearing frozen clothes. They probably never even got a cold from it. They probably never even got sick because they was tough. We may have tough times come in the future in our lives. I don't know. It's kind of a scary thing because nobody knows how to bake a biscuit anymore. And I mean, a few do, I'm sure, but nobody knows how to really do anything anymore. They just go to the store and they just buy it. So anyway, I might mention one more thing before I get off here because I know this video is really long, but I have a memory like an elephant. Sometimes I wish I didn't because dang, I have a bunch of stuff I wish I could forget. But if you said something to me noteworthy when I was 4 or 5 years old, I probably still remember it. I don't forget anything anybody's ever said to me. And I don't hardly forget anything that was ever done to me or anything I've ever done. Now, I may forget what I did yesterday, but I just don't forget stuff. And I can tell stories and stories and stories of things people have told me, things they've said to me that they probably regret now. That's why I say I'm a secret keeper. I don't forget nothing. You may remember something you wish I'd forget, but I ain't forgot. I've forgiven. So this is the pirate's heart, and if you don't like me, that's okay. I'm getting over it all, but I still love you, and I still fight your battles for you. So, just call me the crusty old lady. So I'm gonna get on to other topics. There's gonna be more and more and more like this. Me just talking stuff because I've had experiences and I know stuff and I feel like I need to share it. But I'm gonna get on to some other things. Um, I am super into anti-aging and I am into health and I like crafty stuff and I like to cook and I'm a painter and I'm an author and I do a lot of different things, but I am going to share other things with you, some videos. Um, I'm into a whole lot of stuff, so I am going to share other interests. I'll probably have a playlist of just words of wisdom and stuff like this. But anyway, I'm going to say goodbye for now. I've got a whole lot of work to do the rest of the day, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. And maybe it's brought back some reminiscing for you on some crusty old warriors that you've known or old grandmas that just were special. Um, but they weren't always in a good mood. Sometimes this life feeds you a sour pill and it's just hard to be in a good mood. And when something comes to your mind or you see somebody acting a fool or you know, I will add that there are some people that are just very tender-hearted, very gentle. I had very gentle children, And I was following suit, and I spanked them some when they was little, but I quit spanking them early on because I realized they didn't really need it. They were just good, and they didn't do bad stuff. And I wish I had learned faster, and I wish I had always been sweeter because sometimes I was harsh. So I'm still growing. The crusty old lady's getting softer every day, not just physically, but in my heart. Okay, I'm going to say bye, and I may end up having to split this video up into two as well, but it was nice talking to you. Meet you on the next video. Bye bye. Now, I would appreciate it if you would like, subscribe, comment. It would be really, really helpful if you hit the bell button so you get notifications, if you would hit the like button, and if you would comment. If there's anything that you have to say to add to what I've got to say, please comment, and I will be more than glad to acknowledge that I've read that, unless I get to be such a big YouTuber that it's too many and I just can't do it. But for now, please comment and please like my video and subscribe. And I will see you on the next video. Bye bye.